Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Sarah Jane from Misunderstood. Now today I'm going to look at the history of dyslexia. Now, dyslexia was first identified in Germany in 1877 by a man called Rudolf Berlin, who was an ophthalmologist, which is an eye specialist. Now he had some patients referred to him because they had difficulty reading the printed word. The vision was good, so he presumed that their difficulties must be caused by some physical change in the brain. Now this theory was called word blindness, and his patients were adults. Now, at the same time, there was a few ophthalmologists who were working on this topic in the UK. Now, one of their patients was a 10-year-old boy who was struggling in learning to read. He was very intelligent and excelling in all his other lessons in school, except reading. Now, these ophthalmologists soon realised that it had nothing to do with visual activity, but a deficiency of the visual memory. By 1920s, research on dyslexia kind of stopped in the UK, but expanded massively in America and Germany. And in 1940, through extensive research, they found developmental dyslexia. Now, developmental dyslexia is an unexpected difficulty in reading in children and adults who otherwise have good intelligence levels and adequate schooling considered necessary for accurate and fluent reading. But this also meant that psychologists were now the researchers of dyslexia and not the ophthalmologists. It wasn't until the 1960s that research started up again in the UK. They were now 40 years behind, and there'd also been a shift in theories about dyslexia. The UK had some catching up to do. By 1970, there were many associations and centres set up for dyslexia. Only the people who could pay for it got any help. The UK government didn't believe that developmental dyslexia existed, despite all the research that had been emerging from America and Germany and many other places over the past 40 years. They chose to just ignore it. The government said they would have an independent review to investigate the education system. The Tizard report came back with the same belief. They didn't believe developmental dyslexia. So the government still refused to give funding. Thousands of British children were being failed because the UK government refused to listen to 40 years of research. Now in 1978 there was a review into the education in Scotland and Wales for children and young people that had academic difficulties. Now this was called the Warnock report. Baroness Mary Warnock recommended that segregated special schools should be for those with the most complex and multiple difficulties, which were long-term, and that mainstream school should develop to meet the needs of all the other children. It was the first comprehensive review of special education needs in England. Now, the Warnock report caused a massive stink within the education. The government justified their views on developmental dyslexia, claiming it still did not recognise the different distinctions of dyslexia and the new umbrella term of specific learning difficulties. They were still refusing to listen to research. Now, this eventually changed in 1987, and the government announced the Department of Education and Science now recognised developmental dyslexia was real, and they recognised the importance of the education progress of dyslexic children, their long-term welfare and successful functioning in adult life, and that they should have their needs identified at an early age, and once the assessment has been made, the appropriate help forthcoming. That was in 1987, 60 years of children being failed. In 2006, the education system was at breaking point. Children were still leaving school unable to read. Now, the Labour government appointed an independent group to review the education system and make recommendations on the identification and teaching of children with dyslexia. Now, this was the Rose report. In 2009, the final Rose report came in, and they stated dyslexia is a learning difficulty that primarily affects the skills involved in accurate and fluent word reading and spelling. This was only 12 years ago. Figures released a few weeks ago stated that 200,000 children are still leaving junior school unable to read. What's changed? Nothing. The Department of Education is still failing children. Only the other day the government asked for them to find savings of at least 5% as part of the new spending review. This means the Department of Education could be facing cuts of nearly 4.5 billion. Something isn't quite working. Well, thank you for listening. To watch any more videos then please subscribe and click on the bell to be notified whenever I upload. Thank you. Bye.